Hey there everybody, how you doing? It's your old pal Cape Joel back again with another film review. Yes, that's right, like everyone else this week, I made a point to go out and see Deadpool 2, Electric Mercaloo, Deadpool 2, Longer, Harder, and Uncut. I'm actually surprised of all the movies that didn't try and have a subtitle gag. I'm shocked Deadpool didn't go in for one of those. Oh well, it is what it is. But yeah, so I mean, I guess just to get my thoughts, right out there, I haven't written anything down, I haven't anything prepared right now for it. In short, I enjoyed it. It was funny. It made me laugh. I laughed probably about as much in this one as I did in the first one. It's definitely bigger, it's definitely louder, they definitely spent a lot more money on it. It's, just as crude, just as irreverent. They break the fourth wall probably even more in this one than they did in the first one. I enjoyed it, and yet after having a day to kind of sit and marinate and really think about it, I don't think Deadpool 2 is as strong as Deadpool 1. It falls into that problem that I think a lot of sequels fall into, and that is that they go big, and because they go so big, it ends up being a lot less focused. And what was so charming about Deadpool 1, especially, after repeated watchings, is that movie had a real kind of, punk rock charm to it and a real, DIY aesthetic, because it had to, because that movie was made on a shoestring budget. It couldn't really afford big action set pieces. There's really only two in the first one, and because of that, they really had to buckle down and really concentrate on story and character work. And those are kind of the things that are lacking in the sequel. Not to say they aren't there. There's some good character stuff there. There's some, good, growth in general. It's just not as strong because it's not as focused. Obviously Deadpool 1 got a lot of people interested and got a lot of people giving it much deserved accolades because, it was a superhero movie second, and it was a love story and a romantic comedy first, is what it was. The sequel tries to do something similar by saying, Deadpool 2 is a family movie you've probably seen in the trailers, and that's definitely what they go for in this one. The big crux of the movie is Deadpool he faces a horrible tragedy early on in the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but you can probably guess what it is. And because of that, he's looking for something to fill the hole inside himself. He's looking, for a surrogate family, somewhere to belong to, someone to love him and everything. And, at first he thinks it'll be the X-Men who bring him in as a trainee, because obviously, he knows Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead from the first one, which is kind of funny in its own way about this movie, Deadpool trying to find community and trying to find friends and trying to make friends. He didn't really have a problem making friends in the first movie, did he? Yeah, he was standoffish and he was a jerk, but he got along with TJ Miller's character, he got along with Al just fine, he got along with those two other X-Men by the end, and the Cabbie, all characters who are back, by the way. So, I don't know if, learning to play nice with others and get along would have been, the character arc and the character journey I would have chosen for Deadpool in the sequel, but where things really take a turn is he gets introduced to this kid, Russell Collins, who, of course, if you're a comic fan, will know is Fire Fist, an absolutely forgettable X-Men, which I think is part of the joke of why they picked him in the first place, because, I mean, come on, Fire Fist, that name is just wonderfully ridiculous. Deadpool runs into this kid. The X-Men want to deal with him one way, Deadpool wants to deal with him a completely other way, and that, kind of sets up the major conflict of the movie. The kid who plays Russell Firefist is the same kid who played, the main kid from that Taika Waititi movie, Hunt for the Wilder People. And he essentially plays the same character here in this movie. He even drops some very similar lines. He talks about Tupac and being a gangster, and he's a wayward youth at a crossroad in his life, and he really wants Deadpool to be his friend and his father figure. Wade could really care less, could really give a shit, and that leads to all manner of conflict. But eventually this gets complicated by the coming of Cable, who has come back in time from a Terminator, Age of Apocalypse dystopian future to try and assassinate this kid, and Deadpool kind of gets roped into trying to protect him, even though he doesn't really want to at first. Josh Brolin, in his second big superhero movie turn this year, is Cable. I think he's everything you could want from a Cable. He is gruff, he is, rough and, tumble. He is essentially the straight man. He is the only one who's serious in a movie where everyone is quirky and everyone cracks jokes. And because of that, he ends up being the butt of like a million jokes, and I think that's kind of perfect. The other great thing about Cable, and the thing that I think they nail with him, and the thing that could very well have gone wrong in weaker hands, and that is they don't bother to explain what Cable's deal is for a huge chunk of the movie, and even still, they don't bother to go into specifics where it's like, oh, he's Cyclops' son, and, Hope Summers in the future, and the legacy virus, and all this other stuff. They don't talk about it. They allude to it, but they don't talk about it. And that's good, because this movie could easily have been, mired in bullshit and could totally have been slowed down if they worried about having to explain what Cable's rich, intricate, convoluted history is. And I think they're better for not explaining anything about him. I think they're better for it. I think it's good that he just shows up and they make fun of him. Hell, I don't even think they mention he's a mutant, is the thing. At one point they call him a pissed off super soldier from the future, which is true, but I don't even think they call him a mutant. I mean, he definitely has advanced technology and weapons from the future that he uses in combat. He recalls his gun to him a couple times, but they don't say if that's a technological power or if that's a mutant ability. So there's still places to go with Cable if they seriously wanted to. And in the end, Cable is ultimately not the villain. He is an antagonist for the first chunk of the movie, but the real villain is actually this group of government-funded religious zealots who are running this, corrupt Xavier School for Youngster, basically like this boarding school for wayward boys with mutant powers. What is it? The brother from Ray Donovan, a show I'm a big fan of, he plays the head of this group. And I'm like, ooh, an actual group of government-funded religious zealots who hate mutants for the sole reason that they were born differently and use, their faith as, a cover for, their just straight up racism and everything. Deadpool even says, hey, we're the X-Men, we're a, social justice metaphor from the 60s and everything. And I think it's so cool that it took this R-rated comedy to give us villains that are probably truer to X-Men comics than we've gotten in the majority of all the other movies. I think it's funny that this one kind of hits the nail on the head on that one. As I mentioned before, this movie is bigger in just about every way. It's more expensive, and it's because of that. One of the original creators, Tim Miller, I think his name was, who was the guy who, it was his CG company who made the original short that got leaked out and was the whole reason the movie got made in the first place. He left the film, he left the sequel, and one of the big reasons he left was because, he said he didn't want to make the same movie over again, but for like 3 times the budget. And in many ways, I think he made the right choice, because as much as I did enjoy Deadpool 2, and I did, as I stop and think about it, it's just as funny, but it's not as good, because it's not as focused, because again, it's a lot bigger, but with no real reason to be bigger, is the thing. In fact, the overall story of saving this kid and stopping him from making bad choices is very small, but this is kind of the thing where it's like, oh, well, we have money to burn, so obviously we need, we need more music, we need more fight scenes, we need more CGI, we need more explosions, we need more everything. It's what people expect for a sequel. And yes, that stuff is cool, but it doesn't add to the story, and it doesn't add to the arcs and everything. It's very fun entertainment. Deadpool 2 is excellent entertainment, there's no doubt about that. But again, not as focused, and not as driven, and it doesn't do the complete hero's arc in its way there. What else there? Without spoiling it too much, there's a great cameo in this one that I was not expecting near the second act ending point. All I will say, though, is that for people who are totally stoked that after all the other X-Men movies got Colossus so wrong, Deadpool got him right, they do that again with yet another character. And I was very, very deeply pleased to see this character come back in a big way. Even if they treat this character almost like more of a threat than he deserves to be treated as. Because this is a character who has routinely been defeated in the comics recently, but this is like the first time general audiences are like, hey, here's a super cool dude. And in fact, they pretty much assume that the audience knows what a super cool dude this guy is and what his powers are, because they never bother to explain. Even though they do actually drop references to his origin, which is way more than he got in the other movies, even though he was played by a different actor. But that was X3, and we can all agree X3 sucks. So there you go. That's that for you. A lot of the gags from the first movie come back. We got Dopinder the cab driver again. He wants to be an assassin now. He wants Deadpool and TJ Miller's character to, let him come in. Al is back doing a lot of the same blind person shtick from before. They do the music gags from the first one again. Remember how they had just call me angel of the morning, angel, during a fight scene. It's like, hey, that's an easy listening pop song. That doesn't happen in a cool fight scene. They do that like 4 times in this movie, but it works because they picked the right songs. They got a little Dolly Parton in there. They got some other ones, and I'm like, you know what? I would complain that you're basically just doing the same joke but different. But I like the song, and I like the sentiment, and I like that that's something Deadpool would pick for himself, is the thing, too. I like the idea that Deadpool would pick it for himself. X-Force is in this movie, too, and again, I feel like they had a script for X-Force ready to go. They also had a Deadpool 2 script ready to go, but then the whole Fox, Disney, Marvel kerfuffle thing happened, and they didn't know if they'd get a chance to make it, so they just kind of smashed 2 storylines together. X-Force is in here. They're good. We get Bedlam. We get Domino. Domino, who's a huge part of this movie. Very funny, very cool. Luck as a superpower is done really well on screen. It's basically like if you ever saw the Final Destination movies. What if Final Destination worked in your favor and like actually helped you out for a change? They're good. Shatterstar made me laugh, and I was the only one in my theater who laughs. He mentions being from Mojo World, and I just killed myself. No one else laughed, though. I was the only nerd in the theater when I laughed super hard at the mention of Mojo World, and the fact that Deadpool totally freaking hates Shatterstar, I think is pretty hilarious in and of itself, because they're both Rob Liefeld creations. Jerry Duggan gets a name drop. That's fun. He just finished like his 5-year run just recently. I was happy to hear him get a name drop. Also, early on in the movie, someone is on the phone talking to a woman named Gail, or talking about a woman named Gail, and I'm like, ooh, is that a Gail Simone reference? Because Gail Simone wrote Deadpool for a little bit. That would be funny if that was the case. I was mentioning X-Force there. They build X-Force up so much, and then X-Force kind of ends in like a jokey payoff, and it's a funny joke, but at the same time, too, I'm like, if given the choice between building a new X-Force team and having Deadpool hang out with, his X-Men buddies from the first movie, I might have picked that. Because again, they're in the movie, but they have a lot less to do. There's a gag there with Negasonic Teenage Warhead. She's dating Yukio, one of the Japanese X-Men, and they kind of do like a clever inverse of the joke from the first movie, where that everyone is charmed by Deadpool, everyone thinks he's funny, except for Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who just thinks he's exhausting and tiresome and doesn't get him at all. Yukio, her girlfriend, actually likes Deadpool a lot, and they have a cute relationship. Hi, Wade. Bye, Wade. I would have liked to have seen that played up a little bit more. I think they could have actually taken that to some fairly interesting places of being like, well, why do people find Deadpool so annoying and some people love him so much at face value? I thought there could have been some fun stuff gleaned from that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there was stuff on the cutting room floor for it. Ultimately beyond that, I don't know what else to say. Deadpool 2 is funny. It might be as funny as the first one, but it's not as good a movie as the first one. I think Tim Miller was ultimately correct on that one. The action scenes are great. The action scenes are much improved because this is the guy directing this is one of the dudes who directed John Wick. And in fact, he even makes fun of himself in the opening credit gag that yet again returns. It says directed by one of the guys who killed the dog in John Wick, which is true and is just correct. There is also post-credit scenes. There's some really funny post-credit scenes. Apparently there was more, but they cut some because they were way too dark. But yeah, you definitely want to stay for the post-credit scenes on this one. Those are really funny. Those are really cool, especially, if you've paid attention to all the X-Men movies, and, they do some stuff. Ryan Reynolds isn't afraid to burn himself. Lot of Canada shout-outs, which I appreciated and my theater loved, being Canadian. Of course, there's a big 007 style ballad as sung by Celine Dion. Yeah, they drop a couple interesting Canada references here and there, which were a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, that's really the long and short of it. That's Deadpool 2. It's good. I don't think you'll be disappointed seeing this one. I certainly didn't feel like I wasted my money. But if we were to really, you know, contrast and compare, I think Deadpool 1 is still stronger. It falls into that trap that sequels sometimes fall into, and that is you build too much too quickly when you should have been, you know, really concentrating on the foundation. Will there be a third Deadpool? Honestly, I don't know. In fact, I think they didn't even know when making this movie, because they, when it comes to like the cutting references to comics and comic book movies, they go really harsh on this one. Like the first one was almost like, you know, pulling its punches in ways. This one goes to town on a lot of the other movies, and I'm just like, wow, it almost feels like they had to get it out now because they don't know if Deadpool will eventually be part of the Marvel Disney machine of the MCU, or what could potentially happen to him down the line. But yeah, that's that, everyone. I feel like I've been trying to end this video a couple times here, but that's Deadpool. That's my thoughts on it. Again, I hope you enjoyed it too. I will be back again next time when we get to talk about another movie. I imagine I'll be talking about Solo very soon. So until next time, everyone, this has been Cape Joel. Bye-bye.